This video is on the topic of the type and structure of trade unions. It's largely self-explanatory, so we weren't going to spend a lot of time in great detail on the various points, but it's worth making a note of them and doing some additional pieces of research and perhaps filling out the information yourself at the end. But for the moment, we just want to run through the different types of trade union and their structures. There are different types of unions, and these are classified as company and employment unions. There may be a union for a particular company. It depends on the size of the company, of course. Large companies may have unions which focus in on that company because it's a very large employer. For example, railway companies may have unions specific to them. Electric companies, very large companies, may have specific trade unions. There are, of course, craft and occupational unions. Craft workers, people working in particular craft occupations, may have unions looking after their interests. There are industrial unions, engineering unions, unions for builders and carpenters and so on, which are related to particular industries. There are general trade unions that take in just about everybody from different occupations, but normally occupations that are not covered by other trade unions. So sometimes workers are difficult to classify because of their work, the nature of their work, and they belong to general trade unions. Now, company and employment unionisation, or unions. Well, a union that exists to serve the purpose of an organisation. The majority of these unions are restricted and controlled by the organisation. So it could be a company and an employment union. Sometimes companies themselves organise the equivalent of trade unions within their own organisations, because it's easier to deal with one organisation than to deal with many employees. So the various employees are organised into a type of structure. We could classify it as a union, but a type of committee structure will look after the interest of the workers and negotiate with the employers about conditions and remuneration and so on. So they act like a trade union. Sometimes it's easier for companies to do that than to try to negotiate individually with different employees. Independent unions are discouraged, and membership is limited to employees working for the organisation. So organisations who have this arrangement organise their own union, if you like. They try to discourage other unions from coming into the organisation. They may see that as a complication, or they may see it simply as an unwarranted intrusion into their own practices. So sometimes companies go down this route. It's a form of unionism is seen as inferior and favours the organisation. Clearly it was set up by the organisation, so clearly it favours the organisation. So it's not really representing the workers fully. It hasn't got its heart in the job. It's set up by the management to facilitate their relationship with the workers, but really it's a part of management. And of course the union and its views are influenced by the organisation, by the management. The union is really representing management. It's doing a job. It's an interesting area in some respects, because it overlaps with the functions of the human resource departments in companies. Historically, these were seen as independent. They were representing the company, but at the same time they're independent and looking after the interest of the workers. Um, I think nowadays we more or less assume the HR department to be working for the company and representing the interests of the company. And the workers either look after themselves or they have a trade union looking after their interests. Now, I know many people will dispute what I've just said and will want to correct what I've just said, perhaps, but it seems to be the case that many HR departments are there to ensure areas like health and safety, government legislation, training, all of those areas are implemented properly and professionally. But they're not really there to negotiate on behalf of the workers, negotiate salaries and negotiate terms of work and so on. These are in the employment contract, and they would perhaps be negotiated better by outside agencies, such as outside trade unions. Craft and occupational unions, well, this type of union is organised by occupation, by skills or by craft or whatever. Workers are grouped according to their experiences, their craft experiences, and the union will look after the interest of those workers. Employees are recruited by different organisations in different locations. They do not belong to a particular organisation. So that the craft union will look after the interest of craft workers. Whatever the craft is, it could be particular types of carpentry or particular types of metalworking or particular occupations. It's a craft. The union's source of power and control comes from their supply of skilled labour. For example, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, builders, even teachers. So the union supplies skilled labour, and that's where the union gets the power from. So the employers must take the union seriously and negotiate with the union seriously, because the union is supplying skilled labour. Industrial unions, well, unlike craft and occupational unions, industrial unions adopt a different approach. The union is organised by industry. All members working in a sector or industry can become members, irrespective of their craft or skill level, whether they're skilled or unskilled. The workers within the industry join the union. So the union will be composed of skilled, unskilled, craft workers, non-craft workers. Anyone working for the industry may be recruited to the union. So, for example, the National Union of Mine Workers in the UK, the National Union of Rail Workers. These will include everyone who works for the railways, let's say, or everyone who works for the mine in the coal industry. The coal industry has really been decimated over the last probably 20 years. So a better example in this case would be the National Union of Rail Workers. But various people within the rail industry, from train drivers to ticket collectors to all the various people, will be a part of that union, irrespective of their skills or their particular job specifications. General unions, well, this type of union has been designed for all types of trade, skills, occupations across all industries. It's general. So when people can't find a particular union that matches exactly what they do, they join the general trade union. The idea behind general unions was to organise all grades into political classes. In other words, bring all peoples into the trade unions and make sure that they were represented and make sure that their views were represented. So when we talk about into political classes, we mean that their views, their opinions were taken into account. They were not excluded from the whole process that was going on within industry, within the various negotiations that were happening in industry, the various changes. These people were represented and their views were represented. So the examples would be the Transport and General Workers Union. There are various examples of trade unions which are general. Normally it appears in the title of the union. Now, trade union structure is based on democracy. It's based on democratic voting. The sole responsibility is to support member policies and rights. So it's each individual within the union will have a vote, and they will elect representatives. When it comes to larger organisations like the Trade Union Congress, which is like an umbrella organisation for all the unions, then of course there are some big unions and some small unions. And the belief is then that the smaller unions will have a smaller say than the bigger unions. The smaller unions have fewer members, the bigger unions have more members, and therefore they are more powerful. It starts with national offices. It starts at the top level, the national offices. Then we have branches, individual branches for trade unions. And that's the way the structure happens. We have a national office which organises the branches. The branches are based in various towns and cities and within companies, and so we have the branches for the union. And within the branches we have the trade union representatives, the people elected by the membership to represent them. And then we have the members, the people who pay their subs, as they're called, the people who pay towards the union. They pay a subscription, sometimes called a sub. They pay the subscriptions to the union, and they are the members. So the members elect the representatives. The representatives are within branches. Branches are local offices, if you like, of the trade unions, and the branches all go to make up the national office, looks after them, and that is the structure of the trade union. Members are individuals who pay for joining a union. This could be through a subscription package, as I said earlier. Members can also include employees who are required to join membership with a union provided by an organisation. So the members can be ones who join up and pay towards an organisation, or they can be also include employees who are required to join membership of a union provided by an organisation. Sometimes, as I said earlier, the organisations provide what look like trade unions within their structures and require people to sign up to that particular union. In fact, that's very good for the organisation because, as I said earlier, the management now will have one set of people to deal with in terms of labour relations. They will be able to negotiate and explain policies to one set of people, and it facilitates communications within the organisation. Members are the ones that run a union. So the members are the rank and file, as they're called. These are the members who run the union. The purpose of a union is to ensure employee rights are achieved in employment. So the purpose is to give employees security of employment, good salaries, good working conditions, protect them against redundancies, and so on. And the members are the ones who pay towards the union, and these are the the ones who contribute towards the operations of the union. If the union calls a strike, it's the members that go on strike. If the union engages in negotiations with management and negotiations fail and then the union's called a strike, it's the members who carry out the strike. Trade union representatives, well, these are recruited and selected by members to represent them to management. So within the membership they'll find suitable people who are articulate, understanding, sympathetic to their cause, members of the union, and they will elect these people, popular people amongst themselves perhaps, but they will elect them to represent them when negotiating with the management. Representatives take forward concerns and issues by members and voice their concerns to management. So any issues the members have, they go to their union representative, and the union representative take this forward for consideration by the management. A representative's responsibility is to ensure that they listen to the, if you like, the wants and needs of their members. They try to resolve the problem before taking the concern to higher authorities. So the representatives try to understand the problem, try to understand the logic of the issue. What is the problem, the nature of the problem, and try to even resolve it if they can before they take it forward to management for further consideration. So representatives can be full-time paid officials. Sometimes the union pay people to work as full-time representatives. These are normally employed regionally. There are very few of them around. The union doesn't employ a lot of these, but they can be full-time officials of the trade unions who normally are employed regionally throughout the country. Their purpose is to ensure policies and practices are followed in accordance with and agreed by the committee. So they look at the policies and try to implement the policies and make sure the policies are understood by the members. What is the union trying to do? What's the union? What are the current concerns of the union? How are the union going about resolving problems? And it's disseminating information. It's keeping people in the know and organising the workers as well. They could be part-time voluntary workers, branch officers based in regional areas. They oversee activities in local areas. So it could be just part-time workers who are very interested in the union, perhaps work within the branch. The branch could be a set of offices, say in the local city or the local town. They work in there and they're unpaid, they're voluntary, but they're so interested in the work of the union that they're prepared to take on some responsibilities, and they work for the union and to promote the union in those areas. The representatives can be workplace representatives, also known as shop stewards, or staff representatives. So if they're in the workplace, they're known as a shop steward. These representatives are employed to act on behalf of the workforce. They are responsible for ensuring regular meetings, concerns and issues are delivered to management. So what they're trying to do is to make sure that the workers understand what's happening, have regular meetings, feedback information to the workers, and also make sure that the management understand the concerns and the issues of the workers. So that's the function of shop stewards. Branch secretaries is usually appointed by local members. The purpose is to support union members on a regional basis. So a branch secretary is normally appointed by local members. The local members have elections and the branch secretary is elected. There are also regional offices where paid employees work to support and advise trade union members. These offices tend to be based locally. So there are regional offices But in a sense, paradoxically, they could be local to industry, to the particular industry that they're representing. They cover the region, they cover many companies within that area, but perhaps the big companies, they will be based close to those, because that's where the bulk of the membership come from. National offices, well, the national office is the main headquarters for the union. They offer support and advice to all members and paid employees in the structure. So the national office is the one that looks after the branches and looks after all of the structure of the union, to make sure that everyone's aware of what the union's doing, the union policy, the current negotiations that are being undertaken, the outcomes of the negotiations, keeping everybody fully aware of what's happening. So sometimes the national office will be engaged in negotiations with employers, particularly if it's a large employer. Sometimes it might be the branch who will negotiate, depending on, again, the size of the employer. But if the branch secretary finds problems in negotiations, they may call in assistance from the national office. The national office works towards meeting their members' demands involving working conditions and pay. So the national office tries to accommodate the needs and requirements of the membership. They try to address the needs and requirements of the membership, and they will be guided by what the membership want. They will have perhaps a ballot to see if the membership want them to negotiate higher wages and salaries, or better working conditions, or longer holidays, or what is it that they are trying to achieve. The national office are responsible for organising strikes and campaigns and pressure groups. They're the ones who keep the pressure on the employers. They keep the pressure on the employers so that to ensure that there is fairness in the workplace, that the employers don't get too strong and are able to, in a sense, abuse the workers, or mistreat the workers, or make them redundant unfairly, or discriminate, or pay them less than what they're entitled, or expect them to work longer, whatever it is. So it's the national office who ensures that there's constant pressure and constant awareness of the practices that are undertaken within industry. And if an employer is misbehaving, they may publicise this and get the company a bad reputation, and get that employer a bad reputation. So they have got power, and they try to wield this power in the interest of their membership. So that is the structure of trade unions, starting at the national level, down through the branches, down to the very local level, and looking at different roles, the branch secretary, the shop stewards, and all the way up to the leader of the union at the national level, who will be interested in talking to government about economic policy, about issues that affect the trade union. And the trade union will have specialists who are trying to negotiate favourable terms and discounts for their membership on products and services, and making legal advice and financial advice available to the members, and so on. So it's a supportive mechanism for the employees. That's all we're going to deal with here. So that is the type and structure of trade unions. And thank you for watching.